Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Cast Me Outside. I'm your host, Aaron Scholl. Today is Tuesday, February 18th. Glad to be back. Cold February day. Cold February day. It's just been cutting straight to the bones. Been cutting to the bones, and it's been latching on. The chill just remains. Just a constant reminder of why I'm scared of cold showers. Even though I will say I did have a bit of a manic moment. And that's over exaggeration. But I did have a moment where I was standing at work doing my job, being like, today's the day. We're just going to do everything. We're going to do the cold showers, the workouts, the writing, the perfect ideal lifestyle day, the meditation. Like we're just going to get it all in somehow. Is what I thought. And then 4 o'clock came around, and boy, I was singing a different tune. I was I got to spend time with my nephew. He's such a good child. He's such a nice child. Yeah, nothing super exciting, just crawling and sitting, and he was playing with the guitar a little bit and just being himself. Really pretty mellow. I've been lucky. I feel like all the times that I've hung out around him, he's kept his cool. I think they took him home early from one holiday thing just because, the baby's unconsolable. I don't know that word, but I'm gonna try and say it. But yeah, that's not how it worked out. I did end up doing some nsdr, and I will say the non-sleep deep rest has been good. I'm a little mad. I told myself I'm gonna do the 20-minute one because I do the 10-minute one, and I always feel like I want a little bit more peaceful time, restful time, and then I just end up falling asleep, and I end up taking a nap for an hour, which is fine. It feels like a little bit more deliberate of a nap, like maybe a little bit well rested is what I wanted to say. But yeah, I feel more refreshed than just like a straight up nap. But that fucks up my whole schedule, and it's like now I'm basically stuck missing comedy, and I don't even know what, and it just isn't that day. It's just another reminder that day where I just finally somehow tick all the little boxes that I think will move me in the right direction. That day is still at last another day away, but I think I'm just salty because I went to the 20-minute video because I had this thought that I was like, okay, I'm not getting restored enough to just kind of go from NSDR to my day. So maybe I'll just do the 20-minute one, is what I thought. And I turned the 20-minute one on. And of course, maybe it starts 3 minutes in after getting a little bit of a breakdown from Huberman, the host. I did his 20-minute one. And then, I have these alarms because I was doing some mindfulness, and now and then the alarm went off and it kind of ruined the 20-minute one. So I was just like, fuck it. I was a little bit angry. I just was like, fuck it. And I put on the 10-minute one, and then, I did the 10-minute one and fell asleep. And now I'm here. I'm back. I'm refreshed. I ate a sandwich. So hopefully my mood will take a little bit of an upswing. Still beating myself up for not making it to comedy, but it's okay. 1 week at a time. I'm really, really still at the beginning of this journey, and impatience will only get me to frustration and failure. So enjoy the process. Be grateful that I've been able to do this little relaxation video, these yoga nidras. It's basically a breathing and awareness exercise that's designed to, I guess, make you relax, put you in a sleep-like state, but you're not asleep. of course. And then for me, I just end up falling asleep right afterwards. You're not asleep until afterwards when you have a second to fall asleep. But yeah, I'm just a little salty about not being able to stay on schedule with that. But I will say I have found that like I'm definitely taking these like long breaths places. Like I'm definitely like outside of the non-sleep deep rest. I am like doing the breathing. Just I don't know, a moment of like subconscious anxiety, just something to like kind of soothe myself, soothe my nervous system. So if I learn how to relax better in the long run and get more vigor and restoration throughout the day from being able to kind of control my nervous system, then a couple weekdays where I end up napping will be worth the change. And like I tried to illustrate, is I find myself actually regulating myself a little bit better with the breaths, and I need to get right back into exercise. Maybe that'll be my thing. I'll just do something small and do a 10-15 minute exercise. If you're not going to go out into the frigid cold and make it to the gym, you got a yoga mat, you got kettlebells right there. 30 minutes. I can fucking do 30 minutes. She had an interesting night last night. My friend I usually play video games with didn't hit me back, so I only played like an hour of video games. I started losing, and I just was like filled with such self-loathing from wasting an entire weekend playing video games that I could only stand an hour. And then I kind of checked a couple boxes of some chores. So they say you can really increase your ability to focus by staring at a dot on like a piece of paper for like a minute before you do any work that you want to focus on. And then I think they also said, this is stuff from Huberman that I'm paraphrasing, that you can also kind of increase your openness and your receptiveness by staring at dots. So I was like, oh, well, that sounds like the stars. So I like looked up some videos of the stars, and they were just these funny. They were funny to me because I could see what they were. They were like cool pictures with like the foreground cut out, and then the sky was replaced with these like really intense Milky Way like galaxy things. Like it was definitely hyper real or a composite. It wasn't the actual picture we were watching, but I don't know. I thought of one or two jokes. Actually, now I'm like in my mind, I'm like, what were they? Not that good. I gave up porn, and now I only masturbate to the thought of my bully getting bullied. I've just like I have like this joke paranoia. I think I'm maybe taking someone's joke. But pretty normal work day. Besides the weird nsdr, I was able to get the episode out that I recorded yesterday. So kudos to me for staying consistent. I went into this really cool podcast about journaling on the art of manliness, and what was kind of cool about it? It was like kind of like the history of journaling. Like at the beginning, they talked a little bit about the evolution, how there was parchment, and then there was papyrus, and then they even had these wax tabs that people would etch in and then melt, and then so they could like re-etch. And they were like the parchment is technically like made out of animal hide, so it's like a leather, so it wasn't permanent. You would kind of just like paint on it. It was kind of like a canvas. So I guess canvas is made of cannabis, but this is like a hide. It was like writing on leather, so you could scrape off the ink. It was a little bit more like painting. And they said papyrus just didn't really last very long. That's why like the only papyrus that's preserved is in Egyptian tombs, because that's like kind of the only environment, that dry, very still tomb is one of the only environments that something that fragile would be able to last for thousands of years. then the wax tablet was kind of for stuff that wasn't important enough to keep for a while. But then they said eventually, like in Spain, they invented paper, and then they got good enough at inventing paper. They got good enough at that process for like people to have notebooks. And then in Florentine, Italy, entrepreneurs were using their notebooks to keep track of all their notes, and like because they had a running ledger and stuff, and they could keep deals, and they could remember everything, and they have contracts on paper where you know the information that's written down wasn't altered with these parchments. Since you could scrape off the ink, you didn't know if things weren't forged. So he was arguing that kind of like created business, or created like a lot of wealth, because business was able to be done more efficiently and more like honestly. And he was even saying that like almost all like corporations, like a bunch of like ideas that we use in the business world today were basically invented, started in like the 13th century Florentine Italy, because they had so much access to the notebook. They had like a lot more access, I guess, to paper than everyone else did, and then that also kind of compounded on the art side too, because like you can write numbers and notes in your notebook, but you can also draw. And if you have 1,000 pieces of paper, you have 1,000 attempts, so you can get so much better, so much faster. So that kind of accounts for some of the art in that area. It was really interesting. And then they would just talk about how everyone would like carry around a notebook in Italy, but I can't remember what it's called, and that's what I'm going to look up really quick. Zibaldone. That's what it's called. So basically, these Italians, when they had their notebooks, they would just, carry around their notebook, and in it they would write phrases they liked, poems they liked, song verses, sometimes recipes, and everyone kind of had their maybe like a dirty story, and it was called a zibaldone, Zibaldone. I thought that was cool. Just kind of, like your kind of meme collection was kind of the way I thought of it. Like, oh, this is my folder where I keep all like the things that make me laugh, the funny stories that happened. And it's like, oh, here's my little notebook that I have all my favorite quotes in. I don't know. There was something like very cool about that. Something that like kind of makes me want to do something like that. But again, it's just like another thing on my plate that I'm gonna half eat. So it's like I have all this stuff on my plate. I just take a bite of everything and I'm not satisfied. But yeah, the zibaldone, so that was cool. That kind of got me excited to write. Sometimes you need like a little bit of that. Jimmy Carr, he's a very famous one-liner British comedian, English comedian, and when he was on Joe Rogan, he just kind of was going off on how awesome comedy is, and how great it is. And those episodes, like me, when it's like someone who's so established, like that can still like get you hyped and appreciate what you're doing. It's a beautiful thing, and that's what this episode of The Art of Manliness was doing. It's called The Power of the Notebook. I don't know if I finished it, but I love the history part. Apparently, I couldn't wait to break down the history of it. We did HR training. We did like some of the cliche leftist stuff where it's like microaggressions and blah blah blah. I don't know. I purposely answered a couple questions wrong. My gay little protest. My protest is I'm gonna call it gay. I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna do a microaggression. I you know what? There are people who use their ignorance as a way to kind of be mean to people. Like I was reading through advice options, and there was an advice where someone was being mean to someone about their hair and stuff. And so, sometimes these microaggressions are real. I guess, like, if you're doing like weird backhanded compliments or kind of like prying at a subject that is sensitive to someone else's culture. Yeah, that sucks. But this idea to be vigilant for microaggressions, and it's funny, I took a bunch of screenshots. I'm not gonna take the time to organize them and look at them. That was like the popular thing. It was for people to like whistleblow about the horrible HR trainings they had to go through that were all like super leftist, social, like, kind of social justice crap. I think they did a good enough job of sanitizing this. I mean, there was still some egregious things, like it was just like, it basically was like, it's the margin, like you have like, there was a line that said like marginalized people are best at seeing these microaggressions, which is like, I don't, it's like, I don't know what you're doing with that little gem. See, I don't think it's ever going to be a problem. I think, like a lot of these trainings is boilerplates. Like, and we do work with a lot of people from different cultures. But the culture that we don't work with a lot of people from is just the college culture. Maybe in the retail end, but in the back end where I work, there's not a lot of college students like that have drank the social justice Kool-Aid. So I'm not too worried about it. And I work with a bunch of blue collar, offensive people who people who aren't like caught up in virtue signaling, which it has its good and its bad. Like, I could see how certain jokes could be offensive or make people uncomfortable, like, but I just thought it was funny. And there was that time where everyone was like standing up to, yeah, like I said, they were doing the whistleblowing, and they were like, oh my god, can you believe it? It just isn't right. I think whatever version they are of it, or whatever version we signed up for, this was just a bunch of PowerPoints. I think we definitely got the post 2020 like 3 version, or the post, like, definitely not the post 2024, but we got like a more sanitized, there's easier pill to swallow. There's only one or two like insane, it's just insane things. Just like slop. Agree to the slop. Take a little test to confirm that you understand the slop. Okay, I don't know. Yeah, a little off track with that zibaldone. Thank you so much. Art of Manliness article for putting that in the blurb, because I was about to skim through the thing. He says it like 3 or 4 times. So yeah, notebooks. It's that's like the process of like just processing information. They were talking about they were talking about how Charles Darwin would like have a field notebook where he'd basically scribble in just for himself, and then at night he'd come home. Excuse me, I'm like burping. At night he'd come home and kind of translate or transcribe his field notebook. It was really cool. I think there is something missing in the modern world, but like with me and the way my brain works, it's like what works? Like, what will work for this brain with the way it works? That's what we're trying to figure out. But whatever. We can go on to advice, guys. Okay. Should I sell my dad's CD collection? See, this hit home. My dad has a lot of CDs, though this is going to be me one day. So we're thinking about it. Sell my dad's CD collection. That's tough. Like, I like physical media, but being like an out of sight, out of mind person, like, it's so easy for it to just disappear into the background. And I've noticed that, like, I'm a little pack ratty, but I'm also sentimental. Well, hence the pack. So it's like, hence the pack rattiness is like, you're keeping things because you have feelings tied to them. And I think having a lot of CDs is cool. That's what I was like trying, and I think he did take my advice, but I was like trying to like push him and push my father into getting like a wall-mounted CD case instead of like these like CD towers. Like, get like an actual case that kind of takes up an entire wall, because then you have a really cool backdrop for potential to film videos in front of potentially. So my mind was kind of going for the aesthetics of it all. I think having a lot of CDs, a lot of physical media, like what do people do? They buy vinyls, and do they play them? No, they just hang them up for they're like a piece of art that you look at instead of listen to. I turned all of my records into art I look at by hanging them in the wall, like, instead of art I listen to. So, I mean, I got a soft spot for that, but then, dude, the junk. Okay, let's get into the body. Should you sell your dad's CD collection? I think that comes down to how much space you have. My dad passed away and left behind a gigantic CD collection, but unfortunately, it's just way too much for me to keep in my house. It holds sentimental value, and I do have a bit of hoarding tendencies. I'm conflicted because I know I don't need it and it takes a lot of space, but there is some attachment to it. Yeah, you gotta just find the duds, get rid of them. I get it, and I don't know. I picked this to kind of think about what I would do, but I'm like kind of remembering, like, I should try and be funny and entertaining, and that's why you need to take all the CDs out of the CD case and glue them on the wall and make like a shiny CD wall design, like you're a Smosh from early 2000, like you're a 2000 kids that bought a ream of CDRs that you weren't gonna burn. You're just gonna tape or glue to the wall to have a shiny wall. Dude, CDs are fucking shiny and cool, and you can throw them. Have you thought about throwing them? Have you thought about breaking them? Why does my mind go to this destruction? Have you thought about burning them? Yeah, obviously you can't keep them all. And if they're not doing any good in a box, maybe like one or two of them would do good in a box that you can like go back and look at. But an entire imposing, gigantic CD collection, it's bad. Like, and you never know which way the wind blows. Like, I'm sure CDs will have their heyday where you're selling CDs for $30, and I'm sure there are CDs that go for $30 easily. But kind of like retro games and stuff, that physical media, I think, will come back hard. Right? It would be interesting to see like the pattern of vinyl popularity. I know it had like a bit of an upswing. My dad sold a bunch of his vinyl. I was a little salty just because it's cool art, but like, it's his to sell, and if he thought it was a good time, and what am I gonna do, just hoard it like this guy, or have a internal conflict? But yeah, so I get attached to things. So keep it for a little bit, maybe. But yeah, if you're not going to like display it and do it justice, then I wouldn't even, I wouldn't think twice about keeping them. If he has uncles or cousins or nieces or nephews that may want a piece of him, a piece of his collection, to kind of have a good CD and be reminded of their family member. I think that's probably a very heartwarming thing to do. But before you get rid of them, you know what you have to do, and this is something I would do. You have to rip them all to a CD, so you have the digital version. Isn't that what you're missing? Aren't you missing the hours of swapping CDs in and out of a disk drive? Which, good luck if your PC even has a disk drive nowadays. Don't you just want to do that? And then your father's entire collection can be on a thumb drive. And as you do it, you can mourn and reflect. You make playlists of my dad, Rip Dad playlists. Yeah, if you're not going to do it justice and it's just going to weigh you down, just get rid of it. There was a guy who was a huge music lover, and I was at a music event, and these guys literally got a tent for the event so they could sell his CDs and his memorabilia and stuff. So it's like, the things that are treasures to you are going to be burdens to your family, and that's kind of what this guy is stuck with. Stuck with the burden of all these tunes and no time to listen. Yeah, keep your favorite. I'd say depending on how big it is, I'd say keep your favorite 20% just for now, and then if you need to do 20% of that 20% a year later. But you don't owe his stuff anything. If it doesn't spark joy, and I never watched that the Marie Kondo Netflix thing that everyone was talking about when that was a big deal. But if it doesn't spark joy, then that little meme that came out of that makes sense to me. I can comprehend sparking joy. Then get rid of a big chunk of it, because then what is it? Is it like this weird symbolic weight of guilt? Like what? Like that's not what your dad wants. Like once people die, then they have like automatic good intentions. See, they could have been the biggest piece of shit when they were alive, but the second they die, like when they were alive, they could have just been selfish and never did anything in your interest. But the second they die, it's like they would have wanted you to be happy. It's like, no, they wouldn't have given a shit. They would have continued to not give a shit. But no, now that they're dead, they're a good person. Jesus showed them the error of their ways. No, I'm pretty sure he got reincarnated as a tapeworm because he was a piece of shit. Just draining the system, a parasite. Okay, what's going on here? Doing a little weird half improv. But yeah, keep your favorites. Let go. Listen to some tunes for your dad. I know I'm gonna definitely do that. I was standing in the basement the other day, and there's just a literal wall of speakers. Like speakers, there's nothing to compare it to. There's speakers like the size of a desk, like the size of a coffee table, like multiple, and speakers bolted into the walls and stuff. So I know you can come throw your CD collection on top of mine. But no, my dad Still likes CDs, but he also is dabbling with Bluetooth a little bit. He's actually a pretty big radio guy. Just has the radio playing all the time. I don't know if that means he's a big radio guy, because when it comes down to listening to music, I think it's still CD time. But yeah, man, I'm sorry about your dad passing away and the CDs he left behind. But don't you wish those CDs were bonds? I don't even know, certificates. What is a CD? Is like a savings account. Financial literacy. Learn what a CD is. Zibaldone, guys, what a good episode. I'll stop myself. I'll cut myself off from podcast. You gotta cut yourself off from podcasting at this point. If I'm like 80 and podcasting still, it's gonna be like, okay, hard 30-minute time limit, because your boy starts treading water and then slowly his head goes underwater and he's mumbling and it doesn't make any sense, and then he treads a little bit faster and he gets his head above water and he has like a moment of lucidness. but he's still just burning fuel, man. So he's not gonna stay lucid for long. He's gonna go back, get submerged, and start drowning again. That's gonna be the podcast 50 years from now when I'm 83. That's fun to think about. Ugh. Okay. Cool. That's it for today's episode of Cast Me Outside. Another regular episode. It's been a lot of fun, but we're done. Gotta run. Thank you this time for your time. And until next time, keep on living and loving. Peace.